Humans? An alien general growled, his scaled lips curling into a snarl. They're not predators. They're pests, barely a step above vermin. A wave of laughter rippled through the chamber. An alien counselor hissed, "Let them participate in the simulation. It will be amusing to watch them scurry before they're crushed." The humans said nothing, their faces impassive. But deep inside, one thought burned in every mind. They'll regret this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Stick around to see how humanity shocks the entire galaxy. You won't want to miss the ending. Earth's long silence after first contact had puzzled the galaxy. For decades, the Galactic Council had monitored the newly discovered species, expecting rapid integration or outright collapse. Instead, humans thrived quietly, expanding across their solar system without reaching out to the wider galactic community. When the invitation to join the Galactic Council finally arrived, Earth's leaders hesitated. Skeptics called it a trap, a way for advanced species to dominate weaker ones. Optimists saw it as an opportunity to secure humanity's place among the stars. In the end, Earth sent a delegation of scientists, military officers, and diplomats to investigate. Arriving at the Council's central station, a vast glowing sphere orbiting a dying star, humanity's delegation stepped into a world they could barely comprehend. Towering crystalline beings, multi-limbed insectoids, and gaseous entities encased in shimmering fields moved with an air of practiced superiority. The humans, in comparison, looked primitive, armored in bulky exosuits to survive the alien atmosphere. A low-ranking counselor, a feline like Zendari, greeted them with thinly veiled disdain. "Humans, welcome to the Galactic Council. We have awaited your kind's development." The humans exchanged cautious glances, but followed the counselor into the main chamber, where representatives from dozens of species debated over a holographic map of the galaxy. The humans quickly realized this was no ordinary meeting. It was the Council's annual Conflict Assessment Summit. A towering metallic figure, identified as the Mecron Strategos, addressed the room. "We are gathered to determine the readiness and threat levels of all member species. This year, humanity shall be evaluated for the first time." Earth's delegation bristled. They hadn't come here to be tested like lab rats. One of the human officers, Colonel Hughes, stepped forward. "What exactly does this evaluation entail?" The Strategos turned its glowing optics toward him. "A war simulation. Your species will command a fleet against other members. The results will determine your standing in the Council or your removal from consideration." The room erupted in laughter and murmurs. The idea of humans, with their rudimentary starships, competing in a war game against species with millennia of experience was absurd. Hughes gritted his teeth. "And if we refuse," the Zendri counselor sneered, "then humanity will remain an irrelevant backwater, denied the protections and resources of the Council. Of course, you're welcome to surrender preemptively." The humans conferred in hushed tones. Walking away would ensure Earth's isolation, leaving them vulnerable to exploitation. Or worse, accepting the challenge seemed like suicide. Then, one of the scientists spoke up. "We've always been underestimated. Let's show them what that gets them." With grim determination, the humans turned back to the Council. Colonel Hughes spoke for them all. "We'll participate." The laughter died as the humans' resolve filled the chamber. For the first time, the Galactic Council began to wonder if they had underestimated the newest species to join their ranks. The Galactic Council wasted no time explaining the rules of the war simulation. Each species would control a fleet of virtual ships modeled after their real-world designs and technologies. The simulations would test everything from tactical prowess to adaptability. The Council's finest AI systems ensured the results were as close to reality as possible. "Your fleet will start in the outer sectors," the Strategos explained, projecting a hologram of the simulated battlefield. "Territory control, fleet destruction, and resource acquisition will determine your score. Alliances are permitted but not guaranteed to hold." Earth's delegation reviewed their fleet specifications with growing unease. The simulation mirrored Earth's real technological limits: primitive warp drives, limited shielding, and weapons that paled in comparison to those of the other species. By contrast, the top-ranked fleets, like the crystalline armada of the Threxian Collective and the bio-organic vessels of the Zentar Hives, were near unstoppable. In the observation chamber, alien representatives placed bets, many openly mocking humanity. Primitive ships, limited firepower, The humans won't last a single phase, a Threxian delegate sneered, its crystalline body glinting in the low light. Colonel Hughes studied the hologram in silence. The human ships were outclassed, but the simulation didn't account for humanity's greatest strength, their unpredictability. "We'll need to do this our way," he said at last. Back in their preparation room, Hughes addressed the team. "If we fight like them, we'll lose. We're not here to prove we're as strong or as fast. We're here to outthink them. That's what we do best." The team brainstormed strategies that leveraged humanity's ingenuity rather than brute force. One officer suggested using decoy ships to mislead enemies. A scientist proposed hacking into the simulation to gather enemy fleet data. Technically within the rules, but frowned upon by the Council. When the simulation began, Earth's fleet materialized on the outer rim, far from the central resource hubs. It was a disadvantage by design, isolating them from key supplies and forcing them to contend with smaller, opportunistic fleets first. The humans immediately enacted their plan. Instead of rushing to claim territory, they deployed their ships in scattered formations, giving the illusion of a disorganized fleet. Meanwhile, stealth drones hidden in asteroid fields monitored enemy movements. Early skirmishes were brutal. A Zentaur biofleet engaged the humans near a resource node, overwhelming them with superior firepower. Instead of fighting back, the humans retreated, feigning desperation while dropping mines along the way. When the Zentaur fleet pursued, the mines detonated, crippling their lead ships and forcing a retreat. Alien spectators were unimpressed. "Cowardice," one growled, but in the human control room, Colonel Hughes smirked. Let them think that. While larger fleets battled for dominance in the central sectors, humanity focused on hit-and-run tactics, striking supply lines and harassing isolated ships. Their actions didn't go unnoticed. One alien commander, a reptilian Gorvax, began broadcasting a message to all fleets. "Humans are pests, not predators. Let us crush them and move on to real threats." The Council agreed to allow it. A bounty was placed on the human fleet. Suddenly, they were a target for every species in the simulation. Hughes grinned as the news reached them. "Perfect. Now we know where they'll all be." Humanity's trap was set. As the simulation entered its middle stages, humanity's fleet seemed to fade into the background. While the larger, more advanced species clashed over critical resource hubs and strategic territories, the humans appeared content to survive on scraps in the outer sectors. Their ships darted in and out of contested zones, never staying long enough to draw significant attention. To the alien fleets, humanity's behavior looked like desperation. But behind the scenes, the humans were carefully orchestrating a master plan. Colonel Hughes stood before the holographic map in their control room, gesturing to a cluster of resource nodes near the simulation's edge. "They think we're scavengers," he said. "Good, let them. Meanwhile, we've been gathering intelligence on every fleet, movement patterns, command hierarchies, weaknesses. It's time to put that to use." The humans had deployed their stealth drones strategically, monitoring not just enemy movements, but their supply chains. In a simulation where resources were critical, controlling the flow of supplies could decide the outcome of the war. "Let's start small," Hughes said. "Target isolated convoys first. Make it look like bad luck, not strategy." Their first strike was against a lone Zendari supply ship, escorted by minimal defense. The humans ambushed it in an asteroid belt, using the terrain to mask their approach. By the time the Zendari realized what was happening, their supply ship was gone, leaving their nearby fleet low on critical resources. The attack seemed insignificant, a nuisance more than a threat. But then it happened again, and again. Over the next phase of the simulation, supply convoys from multiple fleets began disappearing, their routes mysteriously disrupted. The alien commanders grew frustrated, unable to identify the culprit. Meanwhile, the humans carefully avoided direct confrontation, keeping their fleet intact while sowing chaos among their enemies. The alien spectators grew restless. "What are the humans doing?" a Threxian observer demanded. "They're avoiding the fight! Cowards!" But some of the more experienced commanders began to take notice. A Gorvax general leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "They're not avoiding the fight. They're controlling it." As the larger fleets struggled to maintain their supply lines, humanity shifted tactics again. Instead of small ambushes, they began planting false signals, luring enemy ships into traps. In one instance, a Zentaur biofleet pursued what appeared to be a vulnerable human transport ship. When they caught it, the ship turned out to be a decoy, a hollow shell packed with explosives. The resulting blast crippled half the Zentaur fleet. The humans' psychological warfare escalated. Holographic projections of phantom fleets appeared on enemy radars, forcing them to divert resources to counter non-existent threats. Some fleets grew so paranoid they began attacking each other, suspecting betrayal among their own allies. In the Council's observation chamber, the mood began to shift. What had started as a dismissive amusement at humanity's cowardly tactics was now giving way to unease. "Their fleet is still intact," the Mechron Strategos observed, its glowing optics scanning the latest simulation data. "They have lost fewer ships than any other participant. How is this possible?" Back in the human control room, Hughes watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. "They're spreading themselves thin. We've taken the initiative. Now, it's time to push." For the first time, humanity's fleet moved toward the center of the simulation. Not to fight, but to take control of abandoned resource hubs left unguarded by the distracted alien fleets. The humans were no longer scavengers. They were becoming a force to be reckoned with. The turning point came when the humans executed their most audacious maneuver yet. With the central sectors embroiled in constant battles between the larger fleets, humanity quietly consolidated its control over the peripheral zones. This gave them access to a steady stream of resources, which they used to build reinforcements in the simulation. Colonel Hughes stood at the helm of the human fleet, studying the latest intel. The holographic map showed the two dominant fleets, Threxian and Zentaur, locked in a brutal standoff near the simulation's core. Smaller fleets circled them, hoping to pick off the victor. Humanity remained unnoticed, a shadow on the battlefield. Hughes turned to his team. "If we're going to win this, we need to strike before they realize we're a threat. The Threxian and Zentaur fleets are too evenly matched. If we destabilize their alliance, they'll destroy each other." The plan was bold, risky, and entirely in keeping with humanity's unconventional approach. Using stolen communication codes from previous ambushes, the humans forged a transmission that appeared to come from the Zentaur command. The message accused the Threxians of plotting to betray their alliance after the next battle. At the same time, another forged message was sent to the Zentaur fleet, claiming the Threxians were secretly withholding resources meant for their shared war effort. Within hours, tensions between the two fleets began to rise. Suspicion turned to hostility as minor skirmishes broke out between their scout ships. The alliance that had held firm for most of the simulation began to crumble. Meanwhile, the humans moved closer to the central sector, still avoiding direct engagement. Their fleet split into 3 groups, each tasked with a specific objective. The first group targeted the Threxian command ship, using cloaked drones to disable its communication relays. Isolated from their commanders, the Threxian fleet grew chaotic, reacting slowly to new developments. The second group planted false signals near Zentaur-controlled sectors, creating the illusion of a Threxian attack force. The Zentaur responded by deploying their bioships en masse, leaving key territories undefended. The third group, led personally by Hughes, launched a surprise raid on an abandoned resource hub. Though it seemed insignificant compared to the central battle, the humans knew this move would be critical. Controlling this hub gave them access to rare resources needed to enhance their fleet's offensive capabilities. The chaos in the simulation reached its peak when the Threxian and Zentaur fleets turned on each other entirely. Their massive, advanced ships tore into each other with devastating force, shattering their once dominant positions. The alien spectators watched in stunned silence. "They're fighting each other? How did this happen?" a Zendari representative muttered. "The humans," the Gorvax general growled. "They've been playing all of us." By the time the Threxian and Zentaur fleets realized their mistake, it was too late. Both were severely weakened, their once mighty armadas reduced to scattered remnants. That's when the humans struck. Hughes ordered a full offensive, directing humanity's fleet into the heart of the central sector. Using precise, coordinated strikes, the humans overwhelmed the weakened alien fleets, claiming control of key territories and resources. For the first time in the simulation, humanity stood at the center of the battlefield, not as scavengers or pests, but as a dominant force. The Galactic Council watched in disbelief as Earth's flag rose over the central sector. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had turned the strongest fleets against each other and emerged victorious. The simulated galaxy had fallen into chaos. The once dominant Threxian and Zentaur fleets, battered and scattered, had retreated to their remaining strongholds. Smaller fleets scrambled for survival, desperately avoiding the new power rising in the center: humanity. Colonel Hughes stood in the human control room, his face lit by the flickering holographic display of the battlefield. The humans had seized the central resource hubs, giving them control over the galaxy's lifeline. Yet, the battle wasn't over. "Now is when they'll come for us," Hughes said, scanning the data. "The survivors will rally together. We've shown them what we can do, and that makes us their common enemy." He wasn't wrong. Across the simulation, fragmented fleets began forming uneasy alliances. The Gorvax, Zendari, and remnants of the Threxian and Zentar forces united under a single goal: to crush humanity before it consolidated its power. The humans had planned for this. Hughes activated a map displaying the defensive grid they had built around the central sector. "They'll expect us to hold this position at all costs," he said, pointing to the fortified hubs. "So we won't. We're taking the fight to them." This decision shocked the human officers. "We're abandoning the center?" one asked. "Not abandoning," Hughes clarified. "Setting the stage. They'll think we're panicking and rushing to defend outlying zones, but we'll draw them into a trap." The humans' next move was bold. Instead of fortifying their central position, they redeployed their fleet to seemingly vulnerable sectors on the outskirts of the simulation. Using stealth technology and false signals, they created the illusion of a scattered, disorganized retreat. The alien coalition took the bait. Believing humanity had overextended itself, the coalition fleets launched a massive, coordinated assault. They poured into the central sector only to find it empty. The humans had left behind decoy ships and automated turrets, which delayed the attackers just long enough for the trap to spring. From hidden positions in asteroid fields and nebulae, the human fleet struck. The coalition's ships, packed tightly together for their assault, were caught off guard. Mines detonated, tearing through their ranks. Human destroyers emerged from cover, targeting command ships and key vessels with precision strikes. The battle was chaos. The coalition, larger and more powerful, struggled to adapt to the humans' unconventional tactics. A Gorvax commander snarled as his ship's sensors failed, overwhelmed by electronic jamming. "Where are they?" he roared. "I need firing solutions." "They're everywhere," another voice responded, panic breaking through the comms. Hughes monitored the chaos from the control room. "Keep them disoriented," he ordered. "Hit and fade. Don't let them regroup." Human pilots executed the strategy flawlessly, launching attacks from unexpected angles before disappearing into the void. The coalition's fleets began turning on each other in the confusion, mistaking their allies for enemies. Within hours, the coalition's once massive armada had splintered. What remained of their ships fled to the far corners of the simulation, leaving the humans uncontested in the central sectors. For the first time in the history of the simulation, an underdog species had dismantled a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful forces. As the dust settled, Hughes turned to his team. "It's not over yet," he said. "They still have strongholds, and they'll regroup eventually. But now, they know one thing for sure." He paused, looking at the holographic map now dominated by humanity's flag. "They know we're not prey. We're predators." The simulation entered its final phase, and the remaining fleets scrambled to recover. Those who had underestimated humanity now faced the reality of their mistake. But even as the remnants of alien forces tried to regroup, they knew it was too late. Earth's fleet had secured dominance over the central sectors, and their control over critical resources gave them an overwhelming advantage. Humanity's ships, once dismissed as primitive, now swarmed the battlefield with enhanced weapons, upgraded shields, and near-perfect coordination. In the Galactic Council's observation chamber, silence hung heavy. Representatives from countless species watched in disbelief as Earth's fleet moved like a precision instrument, dismantling the last pockets of resistance. The humans weren't just fighting to survive anymore, they were systematically conquering. Colonel Hughes stood in the control room, his expression grim but focused. "We've proven our point," he said. "Now we finish this. Target the last strongholds." The first to fall was the Threxian Citadel. Despite their crystalline fleet's advanced weaponry, their forces were too depleted from earlier battles. Humanity's ships swarmed the fortress, exploiting every weakness in its defenses. Next was the Zentar Hive fleet. The bioorganic ships, once thought invincible, now looked fragile against humanity's relentless assault. The humans' firepower tore through the Zentaur formations, reducing the once feared fleet to debris. The final battle came against a desperate coalition of the surviving species. Knowing they couldn't win, the alien commanders launched a last-ditch offensive, hoping to inflict enough damage to slow humanity's advance. But the humans were ready. Using the same tactics that had carried them through the simulation, deception, precision, and unpredictability, they dismantled the coalition piece by piece. In the closing moments of the simulation, Earth's flag rose over the last contested territory. The simulation ended with a resounding chime, and the holographic battlefield dissolved. Humanity had won. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives were outraged, accusing the humans of cheating. Others were silent, stunned by the unexpected outcome. The Mechron Strategos spoke first, its voice cold and analytical. The results are undeniable. Humanity has achieved total dominance in the simulation. A Zendri delegate hissed, "This changes nothing." They got lucky. The Gorvax general growled in response. Luck? Did you see the precision of their strikes, the coordination of their fleet? This wasn't luck. It was mastery. Colonel Hughes and the human delegation stepped forward. Despite their victory, there was no arrogance in their demeanor, only a quiet resolve. "We didn't come here to prove we're better than anyone," Hughes said, his voice steady. "We came here to prove we belong. If anyone doubts that, they know where to find us." The chamber fell silent again, the weight of his words sinking in. In the aftermath of the simulation, the Galactic Council could no longer ignore humanity. Some species viewed Earth with newfound respect, others with fear, and a few with outright hostility. But one thing was clear: the humans had shattered every expectation. They weren't just a new species in the galaxy, they were a force to be reckoned with. And this was only the beginning of their story.